3/5 of new cars must be electrical by 2030 to encounter hothouse gas targets, ministers include been alerted. Homes as well requirement to be constructed to a high norm, the Board on Environment Changing, the formal guard dog, says. By the government says the UK is cut emissions more rapid rather than any some G7 nationality, and the board agrees down there has been a big change by Theresa May. Yet, it says the UK will drop brief of its ambitions except ministers do more than to rotate pledges in fact. The board agrees by the government's newly published Pure Increase schedule is a big enhancement, and says the UK has been a planet lead in cut emissions so distant. But it argues how the schedule yet doesn't propose comprehensive policies to encounter legislative carbon sequestration targets. Carbon sequestration cease of production must be done to occur, it says, and timber and plastic should be prohibited of garbage dump in procedure to de-use them. More than trees should be put to absorb up carbon sequestration dioxide, in a type to creation 70,000 hectares, 173,000 acres, of new forest by 2025, and agriculture must do more than to cut emissions. Production, too much, is forced to get more liability. If thou fleeing a big fossil gas business, you include to begin thought on the realities of while, not if, since it is not if any much longer, we use a lot less than fossil embers. He as well criticized building firms for just making the total minimal require on house power effective homes. The board points out how superior isolated homes would cut human beings as billing as so as gear environment changing, and telephone call for more than incentives to promote capable to pay in households to set effectiveness measures. Lord Debon told the Pure Increase policy had modified the color of by the government on the question. These issues include been put in the center of by the government politics, how's a main changing. Yet, he told, ambitions one are not quite. Same policy doesn't supply quite activity to encounter emissions targets in the 2020s and 2030s, he told. Same by the government's policies will requirement to be firmed up as a question of urgent and complemented in further measures if the UK is to supply on legislative commitments and safe its stance as an world environment changing lead. He added, all departments now requirement to see at their deposit to cut emissions, consisting the Division for Transportation. The board wants 30% to 70% of new cars to be ultra-low radiation by 2030, as so as up to 40% of new vans, as portion of efforts to stage out turnover of usual gasoline and diesel engine versions by 2040. Now, less rather than 5% of new car turnover are alternatively spurred, that as well includes combination model. Professor Michael Grubb, of College School London, told, down there are lot of nice ideas out down there on cheap carbon power, cut emissions of buildings, pure transportation and more than, but as the board fairly points of, specific plans requirement to be put in location, and quickly, same by the government is manufacturing all the law noises on supporting for the cheap carbon economics, but these must be rotated in activity, we requirement a year of judgment making. Richard Dark, of the Power and Environment Intellect block, coordinated, we're not on path to encounter emissions goals how boot in fair 5-year period how foliage ministers slight period for inquiries and consultations, their departure to include to put new policies in location quick. Mr. Dark offered fast win policies consisting, cut business car tax for electrical vehicles, abolishing the ban on coastal breeze force, same cheapest shape of power general, and de-starting the program for null carbon sequestration homes. A industry division representative told, same study of the Freelance Board on Environment Changing acting an essential part same UK has diminished emissions on a in-insan base more rapid rather than any some G7 nationality, and our Pure Increase policy is the following aspiring landmark in our job to decarbonize the UK. We include ever told it is just the begin of a trial ours proposals will go on to develop, if in answer to expenses of revolving power, upcoming downward, superior testimony on environment changing, broad trends in technique or the economical opportunities brought via our industry policy.